Lucy asked me to do a talk on anaerobic training for boxers. What works best? How should you do it? I'll keep this very, very brief, but you need to watch the previous video I did on running training for boxers. I will post the link in the thing below so you can follow that and have a look at that. It's in a bit more detail. You see, most fights, amateurs and pros, up to the four rounders, are anaerobic in their nature. There's very little in the way of aerobic work being done. It's different once you get to 6 round, 8, 10 and 12. Yeah, there's a greater proportion of the work is aerobic there. But anaerobic training doesn't have to be running. There is a link below, like I said, that you can use. Now, the other thing is that anaerobic training can be low impact. You can do it on a rower, you can do it cycling, or it can be circuits. And in my opinion, circuits, because it creates muscular strength and endurance, is the best way to train anaerobically. Circuits and running are definitely my two favorite ways. Remember that you are training energy systems. You're not just training your arms or your legs, you're training the whole body as a system. So you're training energy systems. Now, you can start off with more general work further out from a fight, but once you get into that last 8 weeks, then it's going to need to be more specific. So things like sparring, pad work, etc. So that's where you're going to get the anaerobic work. It needs to be periodized. Like I said, it changes 8 weeks out from the fight, and you need to actually lower the volume of your work, even though the intensity remains very, very high in the last 8 weeks. It takes the human body 6 to 8 weeks to get to a peak. Now, the problem is a lot of fighters are doing their hardest training in the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks before a fight, and what happens is they're actually overtrained. Let me show you an example what overtraining looks like. Here's what I prepared earlier. Now, when we're training, what we're trying to do is we're trying to stimulate rather than to annihilate. Now, you're trying to produce let's have a look at that a bit closer. You're trying to produce a nice piece of toast. If you are undertrained, it's like this, a piece of bread. But if you are overtrained, well, who's going to eat that? That's what overtraining looks like. It really does. When you're trying to achieve this, from this to there. Stimulate, not annihilate. So we can end up with fighters that are overtrained and training so hard just to lose weight. They get so close to the fight, and by the time they get to the fight, they're weight drained, they're exhausted, and their peak would naturally occur 6 to 8 weeks later. So it's important that we're not overloading in the last few days before training. The key is when to include anaerobic training, and you've got to get your microcycle right. Now, as a general rule, 2 hard days in a row is as much as the human body can take before you need a recovery day. So you need an easier day. So you may go hard, hard, easy, rest, rest. That could be a typical microcycle that's going to work particularly well. How hard, how often? Heart rate, 83 to 93% of your maximum heart rate, which is calculated by 2220 minus your age. And then how often a 22 seconds burst is long enough to put you into oxygen debt if that burst is at maximum energy output. So if you're sprinting as fast as you can, 22 seconds is long enough to do it. So a 30-second burst is pretty good. The anaerobic system is designed to work pretty much between the sort of 30 and 90 seconds. After 90 seconds, your body's going to switch back to aerobic work. You're going to have to pay back that oxygen debt that you've accumulated from working too hard too early. An example I like to use for running training is if you can imagine a running track being like oval shaped like that, and what you do is you sprint the straight. You do an 800-meter rep. It's going to take around about the 3-minute mark. If you take sprint the straight, jog the bend, sprint the straight, jog the bend, and this is going to simulate 4 bursts of punches during one round, and it's going to keep you in exactly the correct anaerobic work. And when I say sprint the straight, I mean sprint flat out. When you run the bends, you're not really jogging, you're running quite hard, but you back down, you're not sprinting anymore. So that's a really, really good way to do it using your running. In the last, like I said, in the last sort of week there or thereabouts, I don't think you should be doing any anaerobic training. I think anything that you're doing there should be aerobic, because I don't want you to be working too hard and overtraining in the last week before you go. Neither should you be sparring in the last week before you fight. You don't want to be picking up a cut. So I hope that's helped with a little bit of background to anaerobic training and boxers. Use it as supplemental to the video that I did before on YouTube on boxers running training. That's far more in depth. It's a longer talk. I'll post the link down there for you, and good luck with it. If you are boxing, whether as a competitive boxer, whether you're doing it as a white collar charity show or something like that, the very best of luck to you. But don't just be doing aerobic training. Honestly, it's not how you're not using the right energy systems for most fights. Good luck, guys.